New this morning, an airplane landing in Wichita that's making national headlines. This Boeing cargo plane is on the runway at Jabera Airport this morning. At Jabera Airport. Take a look at that. The trouble is, it was supposed to land somewhere else, and getting it out may be complicated. KAKE's Jordan Shefty is live at Jabera this morning. Jordan.
Yeah, Jamel, this is just an incredible sight. A giant cargo plane landing on the runway accidentally and being stuck now this morning at Jabera Airport. Let me take a step so that you can see it. It's hard to miss. It is giant back there. Now, this is a Boeing 747 Dreamlifter cargo plane that has been on the runway for hours. And it appears this morning that it was some confusion in the cockpit that put it there. Now, the Atlas Airjet landed in Wichita at around 10:20 last night. It was supposed to fly from Kennedy Airport in New York to McConnell Air Force Base. Radio transmissions posted online indicate the crew thought they were landing at Beechcraft, but Jabera Airport is not built for these big cargo jets. Boeing sent a tug from its Central County facilities to Jabera during the night. It had a law enforcement escort because those tugs move so slowly. Now, once that tug turns the jet around, then there's the takeoff issue. Jabera's runway is 6,100 feet long. Boeing's data indicates a Dreamlifter needs more runway than that.
We are tracking a developing story here in Wichita. A Boeing Dreamlifter airplane lands at the wrong airport, and it was on its way to McConnell Air Force Base, but it ended up at Jabera. KAKE's Jordan Shefty is live at Jabera with details on this. Jordan.
The crew members on board are safe. However, it has been an interesting process. This plane is set to take flight at noon today, but it's been interesting getting to this point.
What I can tell you is we do have a Dreamlifter on the runway at Jabera Airport.
A big problem for a little runway.
You know which airport you're at? Well, we think we have a pretty good pulse.
Around 9:30 last night, a Boeing 747 Dreamlifter cargo destined for McConnell Air Force Base somehow ended up on the Jabera runway.
It appears that you are at Jabera Airport. Say the name of it again. Jabera.
Crews spent the morning repositioning the plane, bringing a tug across town to rotate the plane 180 degrees, a tight maneuver on a runway only 100 feet wide.
Certainly more than a three-point turn.
The problem now, the Jabera runway is only 6,100 feet long. A Dreamlifter usually requires about 9,000 feet. Also, the pavement is designed for a maximum 62,000 pounds. This plane much heavier, but aircraft engineers say a takeoff is possible.
And they've assured us they've run all the engineering calculations, performance, and the aircraft is very safe for a normal departure at its current weight and conditions.
The unusual sight.
It's interesting. You don't see something like this every day.
Drew quite the crowd of onlookers. A vision cameras don't do justice to.
I just saw the news this morning and then decided to come down here and take a look for myself.
Since I live in the flight path, I just wanted to make sure that it was turned the opposite way from my house.
It's kind of interesting because of the size of it and the size of the runway. I don't understand how they get it. They had to be good pilots in order to get that plane on the ground and that short of a runway.
R.J. Martin speaking from experience. He used to be a licensed pilot and says the fact this airplane landed here is impressive in itself. Now the question is the takeoff.
They say they didn't offload any fuel or anything off the plane, and that's what's going to make it interesting.
Now, the Federal Aviation Administration is investigating, which they say is standard for deviations. They say that investigations typically take several weeks. Now, again, this flight set to take off in just about an hour now. Of course,
what I have got confirmed from Victor White is that the new crew has arrived to Wichita, a crew that he told me was flying in from New York. And to the other crew, obviously, they flew overnight. They would be past their legal hours.
You got a situation here where you could suck up runway lights. You could have the ground buckle underneath you because this runway is not designed to handle this kind of an airplane, although I'm convinced it will. But there's lots of things that could go wrong, and this crew is trained to handle those circumstances.
Well, the wind could actually be a good thing. Let me explain here. Here's Wichita. Let's zoom in. Here is Jabera Airport. Now we have a north wind. I just checked. Jabera Airport gusting up to about 26, sustained at 20, and that's likely to intensify as we go through the afternoon. They are going to be taking off to the north into that wind. That is a good thing. That provides the maximum amount of lift for this airplane, and that's what they need.
Now, McConnell has 2 parallel runways, and Jabera only has 1. KAKE meteorologist Jay Prater is also a pilot, along with being a meteorologist, and has access to these diagrams. So show us what you mean by this, Jay.
Now, the ironic thing, if they would have left the autopilot coupled, it would have taken them right to 19 left at McConnell Air Force Base. Where do they wind up? About 8 miles to the north. And here is the chart for Jabera Airport. It's a single runway. It's only half the length at 6,000 feet, and it's not 19, it's 18. So when the landing lights illuminated the giant 18 painted right here, they should have known immediately they're about to put down on the wrong runway. But
the engines are on, the lights are on, and it's about to happen.
I think I hear them spool up. Chris, are they spooling up?
Spooling up. Spooling up. Here it goes. Here it goes. It's rotating. It's rotating. It's off the ground. Without incident.
Is this a huge black mark? Will there be an investigation? Will this go on his record? How does that work?
He may well lose license privileges for some period of time, but he made a mistake. But I've got to tell you, it's not a hard mistake to make. If he
a Boeing Dreamlifter lands at the wrong airport. In the cockpit, confusion.
Giant 4241 Heavy, verify you are on the ground at Beach Airport? We think so.
Radio traffic last night between the McConnell Tower and the pilots of the Dreamlifter really revealed just how turned around those pilots were. We get our first indication at about 9:20 last night that something isn't quite right. That's when the pilots come on and say they've landed at what they say is the other airport. At that time, they thought that other airport was the Beechcraft Airport, and it turns out that was not the case. Over the next few minutes, they go back and forth talking about coordinates, and it's a few minutes later when McConnell Tower comes back on and says, you guys are actually about 8 to 9 miles north of us, and take a listen to what happens when they told them they were at Jabera Airport.
It appears that you're at Jabara. Take it. But we saw the plane on the radar, and it appears that you are at Jabara Airport. Say the name of it again. Jabara.
Susan, this drew quite a crowd out here, but it also caused some traffic tie-ups. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Now, the Kansas Highway Patrol had to close a portion of K96 for a little over an hour during the lunch break. They say it was for precautionary measures for the liftoff. Now, officers responded to 2 separate accidents near the airport. Police say a driver rear-ended another while not paying attention to the road on Webb. The other accident happened on K96. Obviously, people were eager to see the Dreamlifter.
Get these vehicles out of this area. It's causing a big congestion.
It's drawing a lot of traffic. It really is. It's interesting. You don't see something like this every day.
Just bumper to bumper. I mean, there was a ton of cars. Police were directing traffic, and people were pulled over off to the side in the driveway across the street, and people were just stopped.
Now, dozens of people use this medical office parking lot across the street to get a better view of this rare event. We saw people of all ages coming out to see this spectacle and even get that perfect photo opportunity.
Okay, and the huge plane sitting on the runway created plenty of excitement at nearby Circle Greenwich Elementary. As KAKE's Phil White tells us, teachers there turned it from a distraction into lessons learned.
A plane sits at the end of a runway in Wichita, Kansas might sound more like the beginning of a problem that belongs in a school math book. But it was a real-world problem going on just across the street from Circle Greenwich Elementary that provided plenty of learning opportunities here.
We talked about problem solving big today.
The problem needing solved was pretty visible from Circle Greenwich Elementary across the road from Jabera Airport. Students wanted to know more about the big plane attracting so much attention outside their school.
When their brains are like sponges, you just do what you can to keep them interested and you just roll with it.
Mrs. Whitehead and her second graders were able to relate the Dream Lifter to a lot of subjects. Engineers were using math and science to make sure the plane could take off. And of course, the impact of aviation on the area economy falls under social studies.
So many of their parents work, in aviation, and so that was being able to connect a lot of the dots of things that they've heard at home and being such a big part of Wichita.
And of course, the day's lessons included the excitement of heading out front and watching the Dream Lifter take off. Mrs. Whitehead says teachers are always excited to teach around real-world events.
As a teacher, you just jump on that kind of stuff and don't let that go to waste.
If you were on Twitter at all today, you know there were some pretty hilarious tweets about the Dream Lifter. Here are a few of my favorites. Someone actually made a Dream Lifter Jabera Twitter account early this morning. Now, one of its tweets, "Thank you for your hospitality, Jabera. We'll try not to do that again." Rico tweets, "Wichita, the air capital, featuring a variety of runways of different lengths to fit all your Dream Lifter needs." ABC, CBS, CNN, all keeping the nation abreast of what was happening in Wichita today. But this one is my favorite. Tweeted in the morning by a female pilot named Carlene. "Women pilots don't land at the wrong airport. We ask for directions."
I love it. I love that. You can watch video of the Dream Lifter take off again and watch today's coverage at KAKE.com and be the first to learn about breaking news by liking KAKE TV on Facebook and following KAKE News on Twitter.
Almost 6 months after the Dream Lifter's mistaken landing at Jabera Airport, we are learning that it did damage the runway there.
This was the scene last November when the huge plane landed at Jabera instead of McConnell Air Force Base. In this KAKE exclusive tonight from Chris Frank, airport authorities confirm the damage.
The Dream Lifter that landed here weighed nearly 10 times what this runway is rated to handle, so it really shouldn't be any surprise that it caused runway damage.
Yeah, that's the Dream Lifter tire.
And next to where the 747 Dream Lifter finally came to rest is now visible damage to the runway.
This is new. That one right by your foot, this thin one right here, that's new.
Cracks, not visible days after the Dream Lifter flew away, are now readily observable after this winter's freeze and thaw cycles.
They're not at this point creating any safety hazards. The pavement is still very usable.
The Dream Lifter mistakenly landed the night of November 20th at Jabera instead of its intended destination, McConnell Air Force Base. Jabera's 8-inch thick runway is designed for general aviation aircraft compared to Mid-Continent's more than 12-inch thick runways. An engineering firm examined the runway in December and will return in June for another examination. The visible damage is in the location where the Dream Lifter stopped, parked, and turned around for
One would assume that extended duration of sitting there, also the perhaps additional force on that pavement as it stopped.
It was simply too much weight for the runway's design. Christopher says it's understood the damage will only get worse, so the Wichita Airport Authority is working with Atlas Air, operator of the Dream Lifter, to get repairs made. A cost estimate is not known yet.
Certainly to make us whole.
And the Wichita Airport really wants these repairs made this summer before we go through another winter and another set of freeze-thaw cycles. At Jabera Airport in Northeast Wichita, Chris Frank, KAKE News.